Honestly, I knew there was a problem when my kidneys were always hurting and my behavior was changing. And even then, I did not want to stop drinking. And it hadn't always been that way. Like many people, drinking for me was very social. I would do it when I wanted to do it. I would stop when I needed to stop. I would have a good time. And that was it. There was nothing special about it. And then July 2019 came. My dad passed away. And I'll say it, I've been saying it, I'll continue to say it. I am so blessed to have been given a father who was so loving, so intentional, so attentive, so present in my life. He was the type of father who would call just to say, I love you, or come and watch a movie with me, or I heard this joke, or I'm thinking about you. What's going on? You've been quiet. He was that person to me. Losing him was absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating. It was as if somebody had walked into the room and switched off the light. And now there is just complete darkness. And I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? He was so much to me. So much to me. The drinking started very subtly. Contractually, I still had obligations. The fact that my dad had passed away was not really what we were talking about. I had to get some things done. And then, of course, a couple of months after, in fact, the month after we buried him, I opened my clothing store. And so I had a lot of work on my plate. And I thought the only way I could continue, the only way I could function was if I was drinking. I needed the help. I needed something to be that thing that would get me through. And alcohol became that thing. I was drinking regularly. But I mean regularly. Now I feel like I have to take a moment and pause. Out of respect for people who are deeply battling with alcohol addiction or any other addiction, and the loved ones of people who are battling addiction, I think it's only right for me to acknowledge that my drinking had not gotten to the point where it was debilitating or it was consuming. I knew very well if I wanted to stop drinking, I could. That's the truth. I knew I could. But drinking became that thing that started to calm me. It became that thing that made my life feel easier. When I was flying out for photo shoots and interviews and doing work, I was drinking to calm my nerves and to just get it done, because deep down in my heart, I was broken. I was screaming. I was completely wrestling with grief and all that it came with. I was just looking for a little peace. And then, of course, the sleep deprivation. That was something nobody could prepare me for. I was so sleep deprived after my dad for a year and some after my dad passed away, that the drinking became that thing where it was like, okay, if I can drink enough, perhaps I can pass out. There was just a lot going on. Then there were the times when I just didn't feel like drinking, and I didn't. And those were the times I got to see the vicious and jealous grip alcohol can have on people. My boyfriend at the time and I were out having a rooftop lunch, and we were having a really good time. It was calm, the weather was good, we were eating good food. It was a good day. And I noticed he kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. Later on, a few friends of ours came to join us, and the drinking continued way into the night. I could see this guy is more than lit up, so I ordered food for the table, and he ate and kept drinking. Eventually, we called it a night and we went home, and I'm sitting in the back seat of the cab with my girlfriend, and I'm telling her just how unimpressed I am. I'm so irritated at the fact that he is that guy. He has two-stepped out of that place. He's been drinking. He's slurring. I just don't like it. It does not look good on him. I don't like it. And of course, he heard some of the remarks I made, and he turned around in that cab and he started confronting me about what I was saying. And I should have known better than to argue with somebody who had been drinking. So I told him how I was feeling, never raised my voice, just told him, which aggravated him even more. And so we get back to the house and he is livid. He is so mad. He's feeling so attacked. He is so embarrassed. And so he starts yelling and shouting. And then he grabs me by the arm. But I mean, viciously grabs me, a tight grip, yanks me. The following day, when I showed him the bruises on my arm, he could not believe that he had done this. I could see the look of guilt and shame and confusion on his face. I could see he could not believe it. And even throughout that day, he was wrestling with guilt. He could barely look at me. I could see it. Have you ever just really liked somebody? Like the chemistry and the connection and the pull between you is just so intense. There is something about the two of you together. There is something that is pulling you guys together in a way you just don't understand. You cannot leave each other alone. That was my friend and this guy. Her and this guy were inseparable. They were always together. They could not leave one another alone. And there was just something about him. I knew. There's just something there that is not adding up. But she was so within this pull. There was nothing you could tell her. And so this one particular night, we go out for dinner and we're having drinks. And she finds out that night that this guy who she's been seeing for years is in a fully committed relationship. And she holds herself together while we're out. But as soon as we get back home, she loses it. She falls apart. I have never seen her cry and scream and lose it this way. She went from rage to deep sadness to anger to hurt to just, I could see she was uncomfortable in her own skin. You know that pain where you just don't know what to do with yourself. She's completely and utterly going off. And so I'm watching this whole thing go down. On one hand, I'm trying to calm her and I'm trying to talk her down and tell her, listen, don't worry, everything is going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It's not going to feel as bad tomorrow. And on the other hand, I'm looking at her and I'm fully aware this is the alcohol talking. This is the alcohol reacting. You are not going to feel this intense and this sorrowful tomorrow. You've just got to try to calm down. And sure enough, the next day, when her and I linked up, I could see the look of shame on her face. I could see she was feeling really bad about what she had done and bad about her behavior. Because it was the alcohol speaking. There came a time in my life where alcohol just did not have that hold it used to have on me. It really didn't. And I can't sit here and say it was my own doing or my own. Nah, it wasn't. October 2021, I was baptized. And at that point, I began to change. God was doing this transformative work inside of me. And one of the first things that he began to address was alcohol. And the strangest thing began to happen. For some reason, anytime somebody poured me a glass of alcohol or I poured it for myself, some way, somehow, I would end up knocking that glass over. And I'm not saying knock the glass over after I've had, no. I would knock the glass over before I could even enjoy that alcohol, before it could even do anything to me. I kept knocking the glass over. And I remember one particular day, I said out loud, what is it? I keep on knocking drinks over. And immediately it occurred to me, God is speaking. I knew God was speaking to me. I knew he was saying this relationship between you and alcohol needs to come to an end. And in sobriety, I've learned so much about the woman I am, the woman I have been created to be, and the purpose on my life. And I cannot sit here again and talk about this as if I somehow said some specific prayer, or I started following a program, or I did something to alter the situation. No, that's not it at all. It's all God. It's all Him. I cannot even say that in a way that I think you'll fully understand for those of you who've never experienced it. It was all Him. He just began to quench this desire to have liquor. I just didn't have that desire and that urge to have alcohol anymore. He really and truly helped me through it. I've also come to learn something about sobriety. That sobriety is more than just the lack of substance in your body. Sobriety is such a thing of the mind. It's about being sober-minded. It's the clarity, the wisdom, and the ability that comes because you are sober-minded. I've met many different people in my life. Prostitutes, corrupt politicians, diviners, a drug dealer, prominent business people, athletes, artists. And had I had more clarity in my mind, I would have dealt with those people, with those relationships, with wisdom. I would have taken what I needed to take and given what I should have given. I would have done what I was sent to do. Life is filled with memories, time, moments, all of it. And when you are sober-minded, you know how to be present for it all. You know how to deal with, or at least have better perspective with how to deal with what happens specifically in your life, because there's a reason for it all. There is a reason for it all.